Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Macabre Masters. This is the second one. The first one was on The Ring, and we made the joke of like, "Hey, Nick should watch Hereditary." In between, and then I was like, "Oh, the next episode." So that's what we did. Is I watched Hereditary, and Noah watched it again, and then Pope did. We were just doing it from memory. Like I was, a little behind the scenes. This is a cursed episode. This is like the fifth time we tried to record it. Yesterday, my PC just was having a lot of problems. Now, all of a sudden, we got it going. So it's cursed. I can tell you my personal experience before we talk about the movie, if you really, really want to.
So let me say this. King Payman, please bless this episode. Okay, we're not going to talk shit. I promise, my brother. I promise.
We have no ill intent.
Okay. No ill intent whatsoever. All right. And of course, what I do think it would be a good way to start is just to kind of talk about a little bit what the movie is about. So for anybody listening, do know that this is a full spoiler podcast. We are not holding back. It is full spoiler. So if you intend to go see the movie, then it's on Amazon Prime for free. So go watch it and then come back and check us out. Just make sure you check us out at some point. And with that said, make sure to like, subscribe, and do all that other good stuff because I need external validation in order to feel like my life is worth living. Now, with that said, Hereditary is it's a horror movie, and it is about it doesn't exactly reveal in the beginning of the movie what it's about, but what it's about is a family that worships the demon King Payman. And so what happens throughout the movie is that King Payman is essentially utilizing this family's members in order to progress his attempts at coming to Earth and becoming a part of Earth. And so in order to achieve that end, you have demonic possession of people. You have scary visions happening to people. A little girl dies. Her big brother dies, but he is resurrected as King Payman, essentially. And then there's also naked people standing around smiling who are members of the cult of Payman. I don't know where that idea comes from. I don't really know like if nudity is a huge thing when it comes to demonic worship, but I do know it makes for very creepy visuals. And so how the movie ends up going is that Payman does come to Earth. He comes to Earth, and in the kind of body of the big brother, and basically everyone else dies in the movie. It's a very scary movie. It's a very creepy movie, and I think it's a movie that really sticks with you, especially because of some of the really, really wonderful performances by some of the actors who just, I mean, especially the mother. The mother just blew it out of the water. When she found Charlie's body, like, God,
I got instant chills. That was one of the scenes. There's like 3 scenes that really stuck with me. This is the day after I watched it, so it's been sticking with me all through, all day and all last night.
Yeah.
So let's go into that. Actually, let's delve into that. What about? We all liked the film. We were all creeped out by the film. What about it stuck with you? And let's start with Noah.
I think one of the things I realized, I noticed it upon the first watch, because this is my second time watching it, was for the show, and I noticed that one thing that it really stuck with me was how, and this is more from like a filmmaking perspective, but how they really kind of they really knew what they needed to show and what they needed to not show. So at the beginning, or towards the, after Charlie gets unfortunately decapitated, the mother comes down the next morning and finds the body, but the son is lying on his bed because he was driving the car when it happened. He's kind of responsible for, unfortunately, for Charlie's death. And he's lying on his bed, and you just hear her kind of talking about how she needs to go to the store, and you just kind of hear it happening. And then you just hear her screaming, and you never see her find the body. And you never actually really see the body. but they know that like it's almost a lot of films they say like show don't tell, so you kind of show everything that's happening, you don't say no exposition or whatnot. But they did such a fantastic job of like it's almost more dreading, like more dreadful, more, you know, it fills you with more dread, that because you you know what's going to happen, but you know you're not going to see it, and you just like anticipating her reaction. You don't know how she's going to react, and it's just
Well,
it's so powerful.
one of
And then oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that one of the ways that scene's actually freaky the first time you watch the movie is that when it does that scene, it doesn't tell you what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You see the big brother look into the back seat. It's all covered in shadow. You do not see it.
Mm-hmm.
All you know is that he drove close to the thing. Her head was sticking out of the window
Mm-hmm.
because she had an allergic reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was trying to get some air. And he was high as fuck, and so you know that you heard a sound of an impact. You
Mm-hmm.
never see her body. And
Yeah.
so the funny thing is when the mother finds out is actually the first time the audience finds out. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason is because she goes out there, freaks out. The
Mm-hmm.
brother was lying awake in bed. And when
Mm-hmm.
you watch it, you're kind of thinking like, why did he do that? Like he didn't check her on her. He didn't go back there. He didn't look to see if she was alive. And the reason is because he is a character saw, and he basically it shattered him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, I mean, if your little sister, you saw her decapitated body in your back seat, and it was your fucking fault, like you would be shattered.
Oh yeah.
And so, he was completely broken by it. And then you don't even know. You hear her go out and discover the body, and you don't know until it does the scene, the infamous flash to the head on the side of the road with the ants eating it, which is one of the most horrific images I've ever seen in a film. Um, it's just terrible. So that's why that's effective. But Noah, please continue.
Oh no, I was just going to give another example, but like yeah, that's absolutely true. Like I kind of forgot because I was watching it for the second time, so I kind of forgot. I knew exactly what was going to happen, so I knew. So all the kind of beats that took place that someone would typically be shocked by, I kind of forgot because I watched the movie like 2 years ago. So I'm thank you for bringing that up because that's absolutely 100% the reason why it's so effective. But another instance of that at the end is when the mother's possessed by something. I don't know if it's King Payment or what.
It is.
And
It is
she
convenient.
has. Oh, really? Okay.
Hmm.
And she is hanging herself on the ceiling, and she's using a rope to saw her own neck off. And you see it happening. They show you just enough so you get the idea of what's happening, but then it cuts away, and you just hear it happening. And the sun jumps out the attic door or the attic window, and you just hear it happening. And then like a split second, and then a thump. She falls, and so they don't have to tell you that she fell. You can just hear it, And it's just, it's they did a really great job, and I think that's like, it's one of those things where they don't want to show you the monster in the monster movies because in the monster movies because it's too because they want to keep that reveal for later. It's not necessarily that, it's just like knowing what's happening but not seeing it, and like having to the only like sense you can tell about what's going to happen is hearing it. Is I don't know, it's just really effective, and it works really well. But
I
that's
mean,
with me the second time.
you never see Payman. Payman is
Yeah.
represented as a ball of light. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
so that's the freakiest ball of light I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God,
Interesting
yeah.
fact, after I saw that movie, I was actually I was staying in an apartment complex, and I spent a long time being freaked out by it. And I remember one night I was staying up and I was working on a design for Beetle Milk, and we had and there was no lights outside of our apartment. Like there was no street lights, and I saw a flashing light,
Oh
and
boy.
I lost it. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done here. Going to bed. See you later. Peace
Oh
out.
my gosh.
And I'm you gotta like appreciate anything that would make you get freaked out by a flash of light. Like, it's insane. So, Nick, what stuck with you, man?
Well, obviously, it was. I actually shed a tear whenever Charlie hit the pole. I have one younger sister who's 2 years younger than me. So like in that moment, it flashed to me seeing my sister, her head, and it was really scary. Um, that was really, and the screams of anguish from the mom, from the Annie character. That's what stuck with me the most was the when Peter hit the pole, and it goes silent. The sound design is really great. It just goes silent, and he just says, "Are you okay?" And then he drives on. We know that she just got decapitated. We just saw what happened. It was horrifying. The silence and then the screams of anguish. Um, that's what stuck with me the most. And then obviously the one scene where she's cutting her neck open or sawing with I think it's piano wire. It's what they insinuated. They showed the piano earlier that it's flipped over and busted open, so it's just like piano wire. Um, and to be completely honest with you, so this we tried to record last night after I had just finished the movie, but today is the day after, and I have not slept. You can ask them. I was in our Discord chat, like, hey guys, I can't sleep. I went to bed at 5:45 and woke up at 6. So every time I would close my eyes, I would just see Annie there, sawing her head off. It's tremendously.
It's creepy movie.
It's just the perfect length to where it's not overdone, and it's not so fast where you're like, wait, what was that? No, he hangs on it for just a second, and then you're out. The way
it's like they don't focus on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'd say the director is super great on like when to show it, and then he's done. He's like, you saw it, you're done. But it's not like a jump scare. There's not a lot of jump scares in the movie. It hangs on, and you're gone.
There are some jump scares though. The freaking clicks, dude. That second click when the mom was in the car, or like I don't know if it was the first or second one.
Yeah.
Anytime the click happened and Charlie's dead, you're like, oh Jesus Christ.
It's supposed to be, from what I've read, it's supposed to be a signifier of the presence of. I already forgot his name. Sorry, we didn't. Payman, yes. So it's supposed to be the signifier that Payman is in the presence, because even Peter does it. Whenever he gets his arm twisted back and busted his face, he does the click.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be like that's the signifier that Payman is there in that moment.
The for me, all of that stuff's really freaky, and there's more in the thing that's really freaky too. But really, I told you guys yesterday the thing about the movie that like really, so the thing about a lot of movies, I think, and it's The Ring kind of acted like they were going to do it and then went back on it, so that's kind of awesome. But the thing about a lot of movies is they give you a happy ending so that you can walk out of it and not have to watch Powerpuff Girls episodes for the rest of the night in order to feel okay. This one didn't. This one never let off. Once it started, it just never let off the whole movie. And it really, I would say it started with the girl's head. Once that happened, the movie just went from 0 to 100 and stayed there, just gunning the gas. And so the part that really freaked me out was actually the very, very end, because Peter, that's his name, the big brother?
I think so.
He dies, and then you see the ball of light, which is Payman. You see the ball of light enter him. He gets up. He is alive, and he's looking around with brand new eyes. You know what I mean? He sees through eyes. And he goes up into this, I think it was a treehouse, and he goes up in there, and the cult of Payman is there waiting for him, including a dead body, and they're all bowing down. And in the front is Charlie's head mounted, and then a crown on it as a representative of him. And so the thing about it is that sounds pretty creepy, but what makes it even more creepy is that Payman is looking around and he's just got these brand new eyes. Like the guy who played him did a wonderful job of just playing like a kid looking in a candy store for the first time. He doesn't know what he's looking at. And then also the music and the lighting. And the music is very pretty and very interesting. And the lighting is very interesting too because it's a treehouse, and so all of this combined makes it deeply, deeply, deeply unsettling. And there's a lot about the movie that's deeply unsettling and freaks me out. But that part right there, every time I think about that corpse, the corpse is decomposing. Like
Yeah.
it's like I think it's the grandma's corpse.
The grandma, where
and
she's
it's headless.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's a decapitated corpse bent over, and I'm on video, so you guys are going to be able to see this. But it's bent over like it's praying to Mecca, and it's just like, how? How did the corpse even get there?
Yeah, because
You know what I
Annie,
mean?
after she cut her head off, the body just we see it on camera. She just like her headless corpse just goes up into the treehouse with no assistance. So it's a weird scene. It was really interesting you mentioned the music though. So when I when we had the problem, I went back and I actually purchased an e-reader version of the Lesser Key of Solomon. So there's payment symbol. This is the actual book, but digital version. When you talk about the music, it says, "There goeth before him also an host of spirits, like men with trumpets and well-sounding cymbals and other sorts of musical instruments." So in some other texts, they say it's like random symbols that sound like trash up until he gets next to you. So if you notice in the movie, I didn't realize this until I started reading the text. Throughout the movie, whenever there's like a scary chase scene happening, it's just a bunch of random trumpets, like a bunch of random instruments, and then at the very end, when he's there in the presence of everyone there, then the music is all of a sudden settled down.
That is amazing.
So
I did
they
not
went
know
deep
that.
in with their demonology. They didn't go into another thing. There is one thing where if you conjure up Payman, there is a possibility you can get two others that ride with him. So there's a possibility you could conjure three. Just depends if they have other demonly duties. From one of the videos that I was watching, that is like, if they have other demonly duties, you're probably not going to get these other two.
Um, just so you know, Noah, you had frozen, but we see you now. Or at least I see you.
I
You're
do.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I was having internet issues.
so one thing we should do real quick is just kind of go into that a little bit. So the book that Nick referenced is called The Lesser Key of Solomon. It's also known as the Ars Goetia. It is one of the kind of definitive guides on summoning demons and the personalities of demons and the positions of demons in hell. It's not the only one. There's also the Dictionary Infernal is another one. There's a few of them. And so King Payman is listed as, and now understand that these texts are people, like there are people that literally do worship demons. And now, when they worship demons, it's more of an aspect of themselves type thing. It's not really a sentient being like they portray Payman as in the movie. But with that said, Payman is a demon that is worshipped in real life. And I actually have I have a demon tarot. I mean, of course I do. And that's what Payman's supposed to look like right there, guys. So
The guy on the camel.
yeah, and so like what Nick's referring to is actual legitimate demonic text. And it's very interesting that they did go that deep in on it. Even I, as a person who has a huge enthusiasm for demonology, did not notice that. So well done, Mr. Nick. All right.
If you watch Lorecast, I'm usually the guy who forgets to research and comes up with things on the fly. So this is the one time.
I've seen it happen. So there's for anybody looking more into some of this information for like what's real, because there is real stuff behind Hereditary. Although I do want to point something out personally as a person who follows the occult and really thinks it's interesting, and that is that most demonic text agrees that demons are not malignant, or they're not maleficent or whatever. They're not. They're not. Their intent isn't to take over the earth or kill people or to hurt people. Their intent is to work with people. And so I do disagree very strongly with that aspect of Hereditary. But with that said, if you do want to look more into this, the Lesser Key of Solomon is a great resource. Also, there's the Dictionary of Demons, the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology is another really good one. The Dictionary Infernal is another good one. There's a whole list of resources that can educate you on the subject if you're curious. But what you probably should take away from it is that Hereditary is fiction and that its characterization of Payman is probably very wrong. I mean, if you look at the description of Payman, it briefly describes him on here. It's King of Hell who manifests as a man with a feminine face astride a camel, right? He commands 200 fallen angels, and half were previously very powerful angels in heaven. You see nothing about taking over entire families and killing them. It's just not a part of the mythology when it comes to him personally. And no demons. You don't see that kind of stuff with him. And so I think that's unfair to Payman. But I actually brought it up in our Discord earlier. I don't know if you guys read it, but a lot of that has to do with Christianization of demonic ideals. Basically, after Constantine took over, the old pagan gods became demons under Christianity. And throughout time, they kind of just got mischaracterized and mischaracterized and mischaracterized even worse. So the idea of evil demons is actually a very, very it's actually twofold. It's kind of a Arabic type idea with jinns, right? Which later metamorphosized into genies, and then also the Christian ideal of demons being the servants of Satan and hell. And that's a very Christian thing and not necessarily something that's contemporary with what we would consider modern demonic knowledge, in my opinion. But let me get off my high horse for a second and let you guys talk. So, do you guys overall think it was a good movie?
I think it was absolutely fantastic. I think it was shot very well. It was acted very well. The sound design was very well. The set design was very well. Um, all the prosthetics and gore, fantastic. I can't think of anything bad with the movie. I don't know why it sparked so much negative hate from audiences. A lot of uh, that's why like it's sitting at like a 70 something or 7.9 stars on some of the stuff and like 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not sure why it panned with audiences, but critics love it. It's usually the opposite way. Usually the audience loves it, but the critics hate it. I'm not sure why that was. I was trying to look up controversy, but it just pulled up a bunch of stuff of like weird stuff. Showing like kid death. Obviously, that was one of the controversies, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of the church was probably upset about renewed interest in demonology. It did spark a lot of that because I tried to type in like King Payman explained, and then I just got a bunch of Hereditary, the origins of King Payman. I'm like, take off the Hereditary part. I want to know about just King Payman. But Hereditary kind of like now is like the modern. It brought it back into like the spotlight.
That's actually very fair. I run in a few I run in a few occult circles as far as like people who seek occult knowledge, and that's something that they actually talk about a lot. Is like if you're here because Hereditary made you interested in King Payman, please leave. Like there's so much more out there that has nothing to do with that. So that's definitely a thorn in the side of occultist. Just so you guys know, I'm not an occultist. I'm a scholar, but I don't believe in any of it. But at the same, well, I can't say I don't believe in it. I do think that there are some weird things out there, and I would not be shocked if there are entities that we know as demons. There are things that people claim though that I just do not think is true, like having sex with a demon, succubi, incubi. I don't believe that for a freaking second. That just makes no sense on every physical level. Noah, did you like the movie?
I thought it was fantastic. The first time I watched it, I was so terrified that I had to turn it off halfway through and send my friend home who I was watching it with. But I ended up finishing it, and then I thought it was amazing. I really did. Like, even though it's a difficult movie to watch, just because of the themes that it covers. It's just everything that Nick said about the acting, the sound design, the set design, the cinematography. It's all just it comes together and it's so good. I think one of the reasons why, or at least because I remember seeing the trailer in theaters for the film, and it really made it seem like uh, not the movie that it was. It just seemed like a kind of generic horror movie about like evil entities or whatever, and the way the marketing, or at least for the trailer, was portrayed, which I know has pretty much absolutely nothing to do with the filmmakers. It's all done. Typically, the marketing for films with trailers is all done by a third party, or by the studio's marketing. But it typically the people who produce and direct the movie have no say in really what happens in the trailer. But it really made it seem like the daughter was the main character, and I'm guessing that one of the reasons why kind of general audiences might have been upset is because they kill her off like a third of the way into the movie.
Yeah.
So it's not really the movie that it kind of was marketed as. But honestly, I think that's a great thing because it totally misleads you and it thinks you absolutely don't see it coming. The first time you watch the movie, you have zero clue that the daughter is going to die. You're like, yeah, she's the main character. She's going to be fine. But no, she's not. And I think it's a really fantastic film. And even though it covers some difficult topics, it's just handled really well. I particularly like how it kind of covers grief and losing like loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think it covers that in a really one of the most realistic ways I've ever seen. Because especially when Pope was talking about, or I don't know if it was you or Nick, but one of you guys was mentioning how I think it was Pope when we see the son in the bed, and when the mom goes to the car, and like even after it happens, you're not quite on your first viewing, you're not quite sure what's happened. He just kind of is like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm just gonna drive home, and he's in shock. He's totally in shock, and you don't think about it until you kind of analyze it. You don't think about it while you're watching, but afterwards, you're like, I don't know how else anybody would react in that scenario. You'd probably just go home and flop down on your bed and want to pass out because you don't know how to handle it. And so it's just like it seems everything about it is just so realistic, from the emotions and the grief standpoint. I can't say about the demonology and whatnot. I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, it's like I wrote down because I took notes the second time or when I watched it for the show, and I wrote down what she said, what the mom was screaming, like after she found out that her daughter was killed. Let me just find it real quick. There we go. She says, I can't, I just want to die. It hurts too much. I just want to die. And then she yells her name, Charlie. And that's over a longer period of time. But it's just like, wow, it's so simple, but it's so effective. It doesn't have to be like some long speech about how she misses her daughter. No, she's just in anguish and you can feel it. It seems
primal.
so real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like absolutely primal. She knocked it out of the park.
It's gut-wrenching.
So let me ask you this. This is this, I guess it was maybe a little inevitable that this podcast, because we're like treading on such heavy ground. But I do want to ask you guys, do you know anybody, and feel free to just say no if you do and you don't want to talk about it. That's okay. But do you guys know anybody who's lost a child?
I know of someone who's lost a child. They're not personal friends of mine, but my parents have friends who we don't really know them anymore, but they lived somewhere where they made these friends, but then they moved. But they're friends. They lost a child shortly after she was born, which is very sad, but it happens. But that's about it.
The reason I ask is because I have I know somebody, and for their privacy, I'm not even going to disclose my relationship with them, but I will say that I know them, and I've known them my entire life, and they almost my entire life, and they did lose a child very young. Their child was a good friend of mine, and one thing that I've noted in them since it happened is that they are this person who used to be like so full of life and so full of humor and energy. Today, it's just like they're still very smart and they still work and stuff, but it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. It's like something. It's like there's a part of them died with the little one. Like it just and it never can be brought back. And that's one of the reasons why I appreciate her performance so much is because I think she very much got that across that there's no going back. After that happens, there is no making it better.
Yeah.
There is no waking up from the nightmare. There is no and it's and like knowing that person who had that happen, and being close to them, or at least as close as I can be with my life of traveling and military and all that stuff, knowing that and seeing the effect it had on them honestly makes me want nothing to do with kids, like, because it's just like if something happened to them, that is a one-way ticket to spending the rest of your life a shattered disaster of a human. And there's even more, there's parts of it that like are even more horrifying to me, like for example, they had to like they like okay, so you don't, you maybe haven't had that experience, but have you had somebody close to you die? Let me ask you that. Okay, do you ever have those thoughts? You know the ones I'm talking about, right? Do you know the ones I'm talking about, right? If you don't, let's move on from this subject because I don't want to put that evil on you. But if you do, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody out there listening, the thoughts, the thoughts that are you don't want to have, but you do, those thoughts, and but it like it being her child and it being the person I know's child in that situation with the thoughts, it's got to be the single most horrifying thing in the history of horror. Like, and I don't mean that in a movie, a scary movie type way. I mean a real life nightmare that you never wake up from. And I really appreciate the fact that they went to very extreme lengths to convey that, to convey that this is a mentally scarring thing that for the rest of their lives, which it turns out because of the movie wouldn't be very long, but if they did live, it would continue on into the future. The mother will never forgive the son for what happened, even though really honestly it's only partially his fault. I think you can watch it and you can read that it is his fault because she had a peanut allergy and he wasn't paying attention because he was trying to get in this chick's pants. But I don't know if you get. I mean, Nick, you have a sibling. Noah, I don't know if you have a sibling, but I have a little brother, and my mom would sometimes force him to go places with me, and I did the same exact thing. Like, maybe I wasn't a good brother, but I was like, hey, screw off. I'm doing this stuff. You go over here. And that's realistic. That's utterly realistic. That's what happens.
Yeah.
At least as far as I know. I mean, would you guys agree with that or disagree? Did you ever find yourself in that situation? Not with the dead kid, but with having to go take a sibling somewhere?
Well, luckily for me, my sister and I, we don't get out much, so we never really did the whole stereotypical. I had to take her somewhere, maybe to like the grocery store, but a lot of the times we just walked together in the grocery store. Um, so that didn't really register to me. With that, I do like when we were in the house together, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this. You go stay in your room, or if you're gonna be in a part of the house, be in a different part of the house." Luckily, we didn't have any allergies or anything because that situation could even happen within your own home if you're just not paying attention. If you're upstairs and your sibling is downstairs and they munch on some peanuts and they got an allergy, I mean that could be negligent too. One thing that Sarah was saying was she was like, at least Peter tried to get her to the hospital. If he was a truly bad brother, he would have been like, "Oh damn, mom's gonna kill me. I don't know what I get better, get better. Don't ruin the party for me." But he immediately picked her ass up and got her to the car and tried to fix the situation. I think that's what really got to me more because like even though my sister and I didn't go out much, like the thought of if my sister needed help, then I would absolutely do whatever I could to get her to the hospital, to get her to whatever situation that she needed to. And then for that to happen, I actually thought that he was going to get her to the hospital and that it was going to be some traumatic event, and then like he was going to be like, I'm going to be a good brother now. I didn't mean to do that, but no, he doesn't get to live without the consequence of he accidentally killed his sister. I with that pole, there was like the pole and it had the symbol of payment on it. It's like inferred that the grandma or Joan or one of the other cultists put it there. Then when the deer was in the middle of the road, that was the one that was meant to behead her. So it was an accident on Peter's part, but someone wanted it to happen because they needed the soul of payment to get out of Charlie. So like, so that's what stuck with me was like, if I had to really get my sister somewhere, then I would absolutely do that.
Yeah, I can't really relate, to be honest, but I have three sisters, but they kind of all did stuff with themselves because, you know, they're all sisters. So I didn't really have to ever take them anywhere. But no, I definitely know what you mean. And I like that you mentioned the pole foreshadowing, because they do a lot of this in the movie where they like heavily foreshadow what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like watching it for the second time, you're like, oh my gosh, obviously. But
Yeah.
then I can imagine, or sorry, watching it for a second time, you're like, obviously. But watching it for a first time, I could see just being absolutely clueless to it, because they do show the pole. Like he drives past and it like the pole is right in the center of this in the frame.
Yeah.
And you see this symbol and you're like, oh shit.
Usually,
Is it the correct? Is it the correct seal of payment?
yeah, I actually have it.
You have the lesser key, so you
I got it
can
on.
find it.
I got it on camera. I'll put it up on the video. I'll have it over us. But yeah, there she is. There it is.
So that was the symbol on the pole.
Yeah,
Was
and
the-
on the grandma's clothes, the necklace.
Yep.
What are some other ways that it foreshadowed? Remember, I haven't seen it a second time, so I've only seen it the first time.
For some reason, the mom. Oh, not for some reason. The mom was making miniatures, and at one point, when she was making the accident, she made a diorama of the accident. For some reason, the mom went. Obviously, not for some reason. We know that the mom went. She became a shattered human being, so she recreated the accident, and the dad was like, "What? What are you doing?" We see her dab the blood up to the head, and then whenever the scene when Charlie is come back and she does the clicking noise to scare Peter, it zooms over the diorama and the head is missing. What obviously the treehouse is a big gigantic foreshadow the whole time, like from no lights, it was like regular lights, then the red of the heat lamp. So just always out there, and the treehouse was always foreshadowing like something was going to happen with that. Most of the time with foreshadows in movies, like you can tell, oh, they zoomed in on the door, something's going to happen with the door. But with the way that they shot the movie, they would show you something and then they'd move on. Then you come back later and it's like, totally forgot about the phone pole. I was like, oh, it's just a creepy symbol on the way there. And then when Charlie got her head blasted off, I was like, that was the pole. So the way they shot it, it comes back.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look through my notes and see if I wrote anything down. I know Charlie, at the beginning, after the funeral happens, Charlie says to her mother, like, when you die, who's going to take care of me?
Yeah.
And not like if you die, you know, she doesn't
when.
say like, she's like, when you die, who's going to take care of me? And that's not really foreshadowing, because technically Charlie dies first, but the mom does die. And also she mentions that the grandma wanted her to be a boy. She's like, grandma wanted me to be a boy because Paimon needs a male host. I'm trying to think of some others. Oh yeah, she cuts off the bird's head, which kind of is there's a lot of beheading in this movie. Lots of heads
there's
being
a
removed.
serious amount of decapitation. Yeah,
I guess that's the main form of how to get someone to a quick way to get payment out of the host body.
I wonder if because you were saying that Paimon has like a female face but like a male body. I wonder if that has something to do with it, because as far as I know,
yeah, they trapped Charlie and Paimon in the same body.
Only the females were decapitated in the movie, because I don't think the dad had his head taken off.
No, he was
caught on fire,
burned,
wasn't he?
Yeah, he caught on fire.
But Charlie had her head decapitated, was decapitated, and then the mother decapitated herself, and then obviously Peter stayed in his
and
full body.
the
He was
mom,
he stayed intact. Yeah.
The
Didn't the grandma?
the grandma
Didn't they
also,
decapitate
Grandma
the
was
grandma?
also
yeah,
the grandma's head was also removed too. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it, you know, because I don't know. I just noticed that as a theme.
a lot of heads in this
Mhm.
movie.
I also wonder if I mean going into that, I wonder if that's also maybe why they mounted Charlie's head in the first place. Because you got to think, if Payman took over the body of a male, then why was Charlie's head mounted at
Yeah,
the end with the crown on it? You know what I mean? And maybe that has something to do with it as well. Maybe it's an allusion to it. Interestingly, though, is Charlie herself didn't look that feminine anyway.
no.
You know what I mean?
If you
She
look at
wasn't the
her in
most
real
feminine girl
life,
out
she
there.
looks like a normal girl, but the way that they did her makeup, she does have like a cleft palate or dysplasia where her lip is up, but they like really accentuated that to where they made her look really creepy. Because like if you look at her now, she just looks like a normal girl. I was like, man, they made her look they made her look really bad in this movie.
They did her dirty.
They did. She looks fine now. She's yeah, she looks fine.
Sorry, I'm just reading my notes again. One of the husband gets a call from the mortuary saying that
Yeah.
that the or not the mortuary but the
graves,
funeral
yeah.
home, saying that the grave was desecrated, but it never really continues with that until the end. Obviously, some cult leaders or cult members dug up the grandma, but then also when Annie is in, she goes to the first like session of therapy, the grief counseling. She talks about her family and how she said her grandma had DID and her grandpa had psychotic depression and her brother had schizophrenia, and her brother accused the mother, like her mother, of putting people inside him. So it's entirely possible that the mom, even from like the grandmother, even from the beginning, wanted to use her own son as a vessel, but then he ended up, I think he ended up hanging himself or killing himself or something. And maybe he didn't even have schizophrenia. Maybe she was just trying to put payment inside of him and he was rejecting it or something. But I don't know. I thought that was interesting as well.
That's
I
what
mean, because it was
inferred.
also a part of the plot that the grandma was too overbearing when it came to the boy as
Yeah,
well.
that's the hereditary part from a lot of what I've read is like they're inheriting the curse of um Payman basically. So like it's inferred that the grandma did try and put Payman inside of her brother or son, one of the two. She did try that and that's why he killed himself. I was watching the dead meat kill count and he did one on it and that's what he inferred from it. From what a lot of people say that they infer from it too. So that's like part of it.
It's just it's a very very multi-layered type film. Like there's a lot of layers to it, and I definitely can see how it kind of became like an entrance drug to the occult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because once you find out that Payman is like a historically recognized demon, that's I mean that's interesting, you know. But I'm really fascinated by the fact that it got a low score. Like it's low scoring. Like that's the single scariest movie I have ever seen in my life. It
is.
freaking
I've never
fucked
had
me up.
I've never had anything keep me up past super late whenever like when I was an adult. But yeah, to keep me up and only get 45 minutes of sleep, it means something.
But yeah.
It's pretty. I also do want to watch this other movie, Midsummer. I hear that one's not as scary, but it's still very, very good. Same kind of cult type stuff, but
Yeah,
different.
think about how it, instead of dealing with grief, it kind of deals more with anxiety.
Okay.
So it's not as like just it doesn't destroy you. You're just like, oh geez, you know. But that's all. That's another great film. They're both just Ari Aster. I don't know I don't know what's going on in his head, but I hope he's okay. But he makes some fantastic movies, even if they're just a little, you know,
A little bit messed up.
about some, yeah, about some very interesting themes.
I mean that's the thing too, is that I think it did a great job of mixing not only kind of like contemporary horror. So when you think contemporary horror, you think weird motions. Like you think like you know, something like The Grudge or like The Ring, where things are just moving and it's non-human. I would say like really one of the things that actually really did that well was Signs. Actually, at the end where you see the alien and he's all like, he moves like a spider almost.
Mm.
So the woman, when the mother, when she's like she's the attic and she's like boom, 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 boom with her head.
Yes.
That freaked me out. That was like one of the ones that actually got me.
Yeah. That was,
it's freaky.
And Peter's so yelling, "Mom, please stop, mommy! I'm sorry, I'll do whatever it takes. Stop." That
he says, "Mommy" too. Like,
yeah,
he's
I was
just,
like, he's like, please, he's just like, please stop, please stop.
Oh gosh, that was scary because like you don't think about the fact that she's making noise, even though like he brought the ladder up from the attic. You're like, oh, she's like banging on it, and you're not thinking about it until it cuts to her. Because I totally forgot about that, and then that happened. I was like, oh Christ, that's
yeah. I thought
terrifying.
she was just punching. I thought
that.
she was just like punching, but no, just beating her head.
Her head, yeah. And so it's like, so that's the thing, right? Is that it mixes stuff like that, which is just very visually disconcerting. Because nothing should move like that, right? But then it mixes that along with like the kind of old school, just real psychological type stuff, like the mind games. Like if you think about the part where she was having the nightmare about her son, you know what I mean? And it's like she's like catching on fire and he's getting eaten by bugs, and like that stuff is visually disconcerting, but it is not in the same way as seeing her bang her head up against the wall. It's much more psychological. I almost wonder if the bugs thing was a reference back to Charlie's head. I
might have been.
I would guess so.
Because when you see Charlie's head is getting eaten by bugs, which actually, believe it or not, that one of the reasons that freaked me out so hard was beyond the excellent job of the people who designed that head. I mean, seriously, the SFX artists on that movie, like, you guys rock. Like, if you hear this, that was awesome. But besides that, is also, believe it or not, for my own personal life, I had a dog die when I was young. He had a heat stroke, unfortunately.
Ooh.
And when it was the first time I'd ever seen a corpse up close, and it was my beloved family dog. His name was Odie. He was a good dog. He was a basset hound. And I walked up to him and I touched his stomach, and it was hard because of rigor mortis. And that was kind of the first indication. But remember, I was like maybe 13, 14. I'd never seen death before up close. And then I saw the ants in his mouth. Yeah. And the ants in the mouth did it. Like, it was like, this thing used to be alive and now it's fucking dead. And because nothing living is going to let ants crawl around in it like that. And so seeing the bugs on Charlie's head actually kind of really fucked with me, because Nick, if you want me to, I'll censor this F words out.
It doesn't bother me. We're not on Lorecast anymore, so there's gonna be content warnings. I mean, so
I mean, there's already so much content in this. This is gonna be like, we're gonna have to put an extensive disclaimer on the beginning of it.
Yes.
But it really messed with me, because it also kind of, like with your sister, like it kind of flashed. It reminded me of that, honestly. Odie was a very beloved dog, and we missed him. We still miss him to this day. And so that's another thing too, is that besides the supernatural elements of the movie, with King Payman and decapitations and demons taking people's bodies and stuff like that, beyond that, on a sheer human level, it's also a very, very, very sad, very disturbing, and very just unsettling film, even if they didn't have the demonic possession be a part of it. Because if you think about it, a girl gets decapitated, right? A mother loses her mind, which makes sense. Her relationship with the father is basically it's in tatters after that. And so, like, a family is destroyed. The son is shattered from that and has to shoulder the blame for the incident happening, even though we know plot-wise it really partially was his fault, but it wasn't completely his fault. It was going to happen really either way. Just a family completely shattered. And I have not seen that portrayed in a movie so well, actually, since Pet Cemetery. Pet Cemetery, the original Pet Cemetery. I haven't seen the new one, but the original Pet Cemetery, the way it depicted like a happy family going from, although I won't say they were obscenely happy in Hereditary, but they were pretty normal nuclear
Yeah, they were
family.
normal at the beginning.
Yeah, and so go from that to a completely broken, just completely destroyed unit. Like I haven't seen it done that well since that movie. And Pet Cemetery is still very, very creepy for that reason. It's not the baby coming back to life in Pet Cemetery. It's not the mother coming back to life at the end. It really is Dr. Creed going insane because that's what happens to Dr. Creed is he goes nuts. And I think that these guys going insane and was one of the things that so like for example one of the some of the creepiest imagery in the entire movie, and I'm not trying to take over this podcast, I
No, it's
promise,
fine.
but some of the creepiest imagery was actually humans. It
Oh
was
yeah.
the cult of payment members standing around naked smiling. I mean, that's what causes him to jump out of the window. It wasn't even his mom doing the weirdest freaking headbang like Slayer was playing in the background ever in history. It was a naked person standing in his attic that made him jump out of the window. You know what I mean? And so the balance of like stuff that's all too human along with very light touches of supernatural. Like I said, you never see Payman
Yeah.
head on, you know. I mean, would you guys agree with that, or what do you think?
Yeah. So like we talked about in The Ring, even though it was pushed back by the time of recording, because life happens. I do plan on being a firefighter, and um, unfortunately, people. Okay, so another thing I didn't mention about in the Ring episode is that a lot of people, especially in America, think that firefighters only go in, uh, jacket open, pecs blazing, running into a fire, putting it in, put the water out, and they're out. Really, firefighters first and foremost are emergency medical technicians, so they're EMTs first. So like anytime there's an accident, an EMT is on the scene first. Anytime your grandma falls down, firefighters are there first. Anytime there's a road accident, firefighters are there first. Extrication, someone got stuck in their car, firefighters are there first. So firefighters are the true first responders, unless it's like something like someone's being shot, that's police, or someone's going to the hospital just for medicine, that's for uh, EMTs. So something that it's put into my mind of I'm gonna have to see this more often than I realize in real life. So it's really scary to think that, and that's part of the problem is um, I have people in my life who are retired firefighters, people who are in fire service now, that tell me their horror stories. They tell me because they know I want to be a firefighter, but they keep it away from the public. Like, I don't know how deep you want me to go into it here, but like, they've told me some awful stories of teens, kids. Uh, so while I've never had, or I know we didn't get to me. I know some people who have had miscarriages close to me, but I've never had someone who has had a full on developed human and had 2, 3, 4 fantastic years, and then the baby passes away. Um, but the retired firefighter that I know told me that he trained someone else to. He was like, "Hey, go ahead and just be a paramedic. You got the skills. Go be a paramedic." And he had three child cardiac arrests right in a row, and he had just had a child. So cardiac arrest, for when you don't know, is when you have a heart attack and your heart stops. So arrest means stop. So like your heart stops. So this guy had just had his child, and he had to go and try and rescue to no avail three children who had their heart just stopped. That retired firefighter also has gone, and he went to an accident where the girl was T-boned, and as soon as they got to the accident, he was like, I'm gonna go help this person. Don't worry about the person in the car. And at the time, his daughter was a teenager, about the same age as the girl who got T-boned and spine was gone, snapped. So it's it put that into real life of me as I'm gonna have to see this quite often, more so than I think, and it's gonna wear down on me. And they have special like debrief sessions where you have to, like, if it was too much, you got to call someone in, and someone has to come and sit down, that whole team that was working that day, and they got to figure it out. There's also specialist therapists for first responders. I know if you do it and you're a firefighter, you get called a pussy, but I don't want to, I don't want to be some gruff, burly guy who's seen a ton of death and is like, yeah, I love death. No, I really don't. I want to be in the saving lives sort of business. But yeah, I'm gonna eventually have to see where a 13-year-old girl stuck her head out the window, thought it was a cool idea, and a stop sign took her out. I'm gonna have to see people who who didn't make it out of the way of a semi truck in time. So it wore down on me on that, where I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to see this in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So two things, Nick. First of all, I did not mean to pass you over.
No, it's totally,
It just
that's
you shook
fine.
your head, and so I was like,
No,
okay, cool. He didn't.
yeah, I didn't know anyone who had like a child pass away.
Then the second thing is who has kids in the background? Okay, because I hear kids.
Oh, Sarah's watching Shrek 2.
Okay, thank freaking God, because that was
Yeah.
about to get weird. I was about to peace out of here. Like, sorry guys, can't do this. Peace out.
Payment?
You know, next time we need to talk about you know, something a little bit lighter, like
Sage it
maybe
up.
Pee-wee's Big House, or you know, the Adventure Time movie. So yeah, it's I gotta say, I respect the living hell out of first responders. I couldn't do it. I don't have the stomach for it. And I do know people that was when I was in the military. I noted on the ring that I've been lucky enough to avoid like a lot of the stuff that people see in combat that like destroys them. But I also know people who did do that. Like they reacted to having to kill people and having to see death in that kind of way. Like you know, like the I love the smell of napalm in the morning type guys. Like you know, like one guy. I mean, he's a nice guy. I love him to death, but he has his confirmed kills. He has tattooed on his arms, like you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4 through 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's like I don't really think that most people who take another life, whether it's the enemy on a battlefield or whether it's by accident, like, you know, Charlie got taken in that movie, I don't think most people can walk away with that, walk away from such a huge thing
Yeah.
completely intact. I think that's just part of our human personality is that killing each other is not something that we can really do naturally, barring some people that are obviously mentally ill, and serial killers and stuff like that. Like you look at like Ted Bundy or Ed Gein or something, these gentlemen are obviously very mentally ill, especially if you see some of their interviews. So with that said, I just respect that. I just want to put that out there on a public forum that like anybody doing that, anybody in a first responder situation, anybody in a police situation, anybody in a firefighter situation, EMT, anything like that, I have mad respect for you dudes. Like 100 million %. And I got hit by a car when I was 14 and I almost died. And the EMT, I don't remember his face. It's like a blur in my head because I mean I had just gotten hit by a car, but I do remember him being very kind to me, and I remember him, you know, trying to get me through it. And the prognosis was death. They took my parents to the hospital and prepared them for me to die. True story, 100%. It happened. They told my parents that they're going to have to say goodbye to me. I'm as good as dead. So he was trying to keep me comfortable and keep me in comfort on the way to my death. And so fortunately I didn't die. But for that EMT, whoever he is, wherever he is, I will always love him and I will always appreciate him. And all EMTs out there, like guys, I am an atheist, but seriously, if there is a God, bless every single one of you for what you do. Like seriously. And we joke around a lot here and we're talking about movies and it's not that serious all the time, but I am dead serious about that. First responders, you guys fucking rule. Okay? And, you know, hit a boy up if you're a first responder. Like I you know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a way to do something nice for first responders. I'll figure something out and I'll update you guys on a future one because I got so much respect. So much respect. All right, guys. So we've hit about an hour. Is there once again I don't know how to shut up. Once again, we're at about an hour. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on the movie or on the mythology behind the movie or on demonology or anything else related to the subject? You guys have anything?
I did, because I have my whole list of notes, I'm just kind of looking over them and I have just a lot. But one thing that I noticed is that in a couple scenes we see some writing on walls. It's specifically in 3 scenes. Well, technically 4 because the mom recreates it in her little miniature. But behind the bed on Charlie's wall, the word Satany is written. I don't exactly know where this one is written, but it's on a wall somewhere in the house. But the word Zazar, Zazar. And then somewhere else, again in the house, I don't quite remember. I didn't really put it here. Is Liftoch or Liftoke or Liftoke Pandemonium. So these are all little things I noticed. I don't know if these mean anything in the whole like demonology world. Obviously, Satany is probably the most recognizable word, but yeah, I didn't know if you were aware of what those words, what the meaning was behind them or not.
I don't have my Lester key on me. Nick, can you find Zazar? Is Zazar one in the Lesser
Actually, you
key?
know what? I should have just looked it up. I didn't even think about it.
I didn't even bring my dictionary of demons in here. I'm slacking. Meaning of words: Satany, Zazas, and Liftoch.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I just got the picture of
Apparently,
them.
the director Ari Aster said that the phrase "Liftoch Pandemonium" translates into "open up chaos" or hell. So that's
okay.
what that
So
means.
yeah, it ties in with
I don't quite know what
payments.
Zazas means though. But yeah.
So it's reasonable to assume that they all tie in with him ascending, essentially.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah. I should have looked it up, but I didn't.
What other
And
notes you got?
oh, there's a lot. One thing I noticed is that she drew a lot, right? Charlie drew a lot, and one of the things that you see in her notebook is she draws the pigeon, but the pigeon's wearing a crown, kind of like how the crown was on her head at the end. So I don't know if she kind of predicted that, that whole crown thing or what. I also liked how they kind of had this contrast between the son's like silent grief and the mother's like very vocal grief. I think that was a really good, just I don't know, it was interesting. Um, Peter starts choking like his sister was choking when he was smoking with his buddies.
Yeah.
And then he starts like crying because just everything is all crazy. But I'm guessing that maybe him being high again kind of reminds him of the situation, so he just kind of gets it's coming back to him.
Yeah.
But I have a lot here, but I don't know if it's all worth going into. Although, man, just a lot of the stuff. I mean, obviously it's called Hereditary because it's about like the relationship between the whole family, but like especially the mom and the daughter and the grandma, mom and daughter. But that mom just like throughout the movie, it's just sprinkled in that like the mom was just really manipulative. Like it was very obvious in that scene where she has where Annie has the nightmare talking to her son. She says that she didn't want to have him and she tried not to have him because she knew that like the mom would try and get her little claws on him. And so like obviously she didn't want to have kids, but her mom like kind of manipulated her into having it or had some sort of say in what happened. I really don't know. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's very what you said earlier about, I think Pope mentioned it about how the horror doesn't just come from the visuals and from like the paranormal stuff. It comes from the relationship with the family and just what's going on in the family. Because by itself, that movie would just be just heart wrenching. But But adding in all the paranormal stuff, it just makes it that much more terrifying. But yeah, I don't know.
Something I don't think I caught when I saw it is, was the mother and father aware of the cult of payment, and were they aware of their role in it? So was the mother aware that Charlie was essentially carrying payment? Like,
I don't think so. It's
I
not.
got the impression they
I
weren't.
think she
Yeah.
was right
Yeah,
at the
no.
end whenever she was like chasing after Joan. She's like, "Yo, my mom has the bed mats." Whenever she started doing like the research and like going through her mom's old stuff, I think she kind of caught on towards the very end of all their lives, basically. Or she
Yeah,
was
not
getting
at
a
the
big
beginning.
old like a big whiff of something that was about to happen. It was too late though at that point. They
She knew
already
that her
had
mom was into
conjured.
some weird stuff,
Yeah,
and she was also like really paranoid because the door of the mom's room gets open towards the beginning of the movie, and she closes it and kind of like hangs there for a second, and then she also sees the mom, you know, but then she disappears. She sees the mom like in the dark. She turns the light on and she's gone. So she's obviously like she knew her mom was into some weird stuff, and she knows that like she knows enough to be like kind of hesitant about the situation, but I don't think she obviously has no idea to the full extent of what's going on. Yeah,
Yeah. It seems really odd that like this cult would make plans centering around this entire family. Because if you consider it like separated from the demons and separate it from any real supernatural elements, and just keep it strictly human, and it's exploitation. Like
yeah,
it's exploiting this family, this nuclear family, as a resource, right? So
hmm
they have resources, which is children, and then the children are used and they're exploited in order to help them accomplish a goal, which in this case is, obviously not the resurrection, but the ascension of Haman. So I mean, I don't know. Like it's very callous, like to like be like, okay, well, this entire family, like, but I also think it's possible the cult of Payman did not know exactly how far Payman would take it.
yeah,
I mean, because that entire family got eradicated. But there's a lot about it that didn't get like explained, in my opinion, to what I saw. Like, for example, it was brought up earlier. One of you brought it up, and I think it's a really good question. Who, where, like, how did, how was she up in the air, sawing herself,
yeah.
or banging on the thing? You know what I mean? Or, like, who did that? Was
to
that
that
payment in there?
to that point, I don't know how reliable this is, but I know it's Wikipedia. But on Wikipedia, it has a list of his powers, Payman's powers, and it says that he can create visions, he can reanimate the dead for several years, and he can fly. So I'm assuming that he was animating the body, and that's how the grandma moved around. And then he also was able to to enter the mom, and she flew up, and so that's my assumption. But
Oh.
yeah,
In the
I
Lesser
don't
Key of
know if
Solomon,
that's in the lesser.
he doesn't really have powers per se. He's not a malignant spirit of evil like the movie says. It says this spirit can teach all arts and sciences and other secret things. He can discover unto thee what the earth is and what holdeth it up in the waters, and what mind is and where it is, or any other thing thou mayest desire to know. So he's mostly, according to this canon of writing, he's mostly one of knowledge. It does say he's like obedient to only Lucifer. He's like number two out of the nine kings. Yeah.
So that's a subject that we will get into in a future episode of Macabre Masters, which is actually the nature of demonology. But what you find, the deeper you look into it, is that demons, like I said, I brushed on before, demons are not characterized in mainstream demonology or even underground demonology as malignant characters. They are not. They are capable of doing malignant actions and hurting people and things of that nature. But for the most part, most demons are almost patron saints of certain things like wisdom and knowledge. And the demon Furfur, for example, Furfur is a demon where if you bind him in a triangle, he has to tell the truth, and he's a truthful demon. And so the I do think that the movie completely, for all its research and for all the stuff that it did right and for all the stuff it got right, one of the things it did was drastically mischaracterize the what a demon is and what it should be and what it could be.
Yeah.
Although they did get one thing right, and that is that a lot of demonologists believe that demons exist, but they are energy, right? Just like a ghost would be energy, just like Foo Fighters, for example, which is something I want to talk about later on in the whole thing, would be energy. The demons are too. And so that's how he's portrayed, right? He's portrayed as just a ball of light that kind of bounces around and then goes into the sun. Goes into the boy, the guy. And so for all they got right, that is one beef I do have with this movie, is if you know the first thing about demonology, you know that a demon, first of all, is not going to come to Earth. Like, they didn't even go into what's Payman's goal after he gets there. After he takes over this dude, what's the plan? What's he going to do? Is it going to be Hereditary 2, Payman Rising, and he's going to fight Godzilla and Samara and the Grudge Girl? Like what's supposed to happen there? You know what I mean? I think the thing is that I think this contributes to a long history of scare tactics when it comes to hell lore and when it comes to demonology lore and when it comes to just the supernatural in general. And the intent is to scare people out of having curiosity about this kind of stuff because, obviously it's not mainstream. But the truth is that most of it that you ever find, I found a book that is a manual. So the Lesser Key of Solomon is a list of like demon invoking kind of rituals. But I found an actual manual for modern day demonologists that it's warns you in the beginning. It's like, this is dark stuff. Like, if you're getting into this, this is really dark stuff. And then you know what it says? It says, don't invoke demons to exploit them. Don't sacrifice anything because sacrifice is not freaking cool, bro. And it says demons are not evil and they're not here to do your bidding and they are not bad. It explicitly, it's one of the first things it says in the book. Like, the Hollywood characterization of demons is wrong. And I'm like expecting like how to summon this demon so, it can like kill like the person who bullies you at school. You know what I mean? And it's nothing. It's just so much not like that. So I do have that beef because it really makes people who care about this stuff look bad. But I think anybody who, has the will, they could go research it. But I also think a lot of people believe that stuff like that is cursed. They believe that reading a book on demonology is cursed and that it'll cause them problems. As a guy with a shelf full of books of the occult, let me assure you, the biggest scary thing, the thing that's messed me up the most, is a little movie called Hereditary, and never the real life occult stuff has never once gotten to me. Or maybe I'm just a weenie, as I say often.
I don't think you are.
This movie messes everyone up, man.
If you look at my shelf,
notoriously,
like this whole chunk right here, that's all horror movies, and none of them got to me. None of them scare me. I can watch those over and over and over again. Resident Evil doesn't scare me. 20 Days Later, it's
scary.
A good movie. 20 Days Later is a good movie, not scary. Hereditary just, I don't know, it wrecked me. It's a really good movie.
Same.
It's fantastic. I can't wait to watch Midsummer. This guy.
I'm not watching Midsummer, so if we're doing an episode on it, count on me not being there. I am not watching Midsummer. I'm just not doing it. I might read the Wikipedia entry. That'll be an episode where I don't talk that much.
Like, it's not near. It doesn't hit that level of like, oh man, it fucks you up as much as Hereditary. It's not that bad.
Yeah, bro, that's like saying that $1 million isn't as much as $1 billion. It's still a lot of money, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's just like it doesn't evoke that same like, oh my god, I'm never gonna be the same after this movie.
Yeah.
Oh god, that's the thing is that like that one, like seriously, like I even talking about it, even even like doing this podcast and talking about it, I have been freaked out just remembering it. Like it's whatever they did it so well. And I don't know, man. It's like somebody went into my head and they found the freak Devin out and ruin 3 weeks of time and like make him scared of flashing lights buttons. And they just boom, 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 you know, like boom, boom, boom. You know, take Devin back to watching the original Pet Cemetery movie. Have you guys ever seen that movie, by the way, the original Pet Cemetery?
No, I've only seen the kill count of it.
Thanks for spoiling it, though. Just kidding.
You're welcome. No, there's a part actually that's it also one of the creepy things is also really great special effects. The sister in Pet Cemetery there's a sister to the wife. She has a spinal disease, and so her face looks all contorted and crazy, and it's just like all messed up and weird. And there's a part where she starts screaming at the sister like, "I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna kill you." And boy, that is the first time I ever like basically pissed my pants during a movie, and it never again happened until Hereditary. Like it was 30, you know, like 25 years in between these incidences, and it's just like, wow. I mean, Stephen King, your move, Stephen King? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
get good, scrub.
Yeah, it didn't even scare me. It didn't scare me. Doctor Sleep didn't scare me. All those Stephen King movies.
Oh, it wasn't scary.
They might be scary while you're watching it because of jump scares, but you leave the theaters and you're just like, eh.
You're like, oh.
But this is like
cool
you stop watching this movie and it sticks with you for the next week.
Yeah, you feel like
potentially.
I think it was because
you feel
we were
like
talking about like anchors. Because like when you watch it, I mean, you got James McAvoy running around with what's his name? I already forgot his name.
Yeah, the really clever
Bill Hader.
Yeah, Bill Hader.
And James McAvoy are running around having a great time. Finn Wolfhard's in the first one. You're like, that's a lot of anchors. It's pretty good. And then Skarsgard. He's probably the scariest thing about the movie is that one face he does. That I can actually do. It's pretty scary.
You can do it? Do it. I want to see it.
Okay. I can make my eyes do the thing. Don't think of me weird, but...
Okay, let's go. Okay, that's the thumbnail right there, guys. That's the thumbnail. That's great. How do you even do it? How do you even... I can't.
I just look. I just look straight up, and then just it happens.
I can't do it. That's so freaky. They
Bill
said Skarsgård actually. That's one of the reasons he got the gig, is because they always planned for Pennywise to be wall-eyed. And then, but they were like, okay. So when he did it naturally, they were like, okay, well, we just saved $10,000 in CGI. So that's good times. Okay, guys. Well, we've went pretty far with this, and this conversation has gone to the dark, to the incredibly maybe need to cut it out of the podcast dark, and then to the light again. Do you have any parting thoughts for our audience on this very new, very awesome podcast that we have started? Anything that you want to leave them with?
Okay, I guess I could say. Yeah.
Be nice.
Be good people. No, thank you absolutely for listening to this. This is a first foray into something that's, for me, I usually delve in PG-13 and below. But this is the first time we're going into stuff that's real, stuff that's deep, stuff that ties to real life, something that I could never do on Lorecast, just because of the nature of it. And we go past the lore, the lore guy or the dates guy. I throw up a lot of dates. So thanks for listening in. I think that this is something that's going to be something really good, and I think it's going to horrify us the more we delve into the other topics that we've talked about behind the scenes. Don't want to spoil it now, but we've talked about some real stuff that's going to get real rough, so stick around.
Noah?
I don't know. Yeah, what I said earlier, just take care of everyone, be nice to each other. That's what I'm all about. Everyone be nice to each other. Respect one another, even if you don't believe the same thing.
Agreed 100%. And my only parting thing is, honestly, if you are going to worship demons, that's completely cool. Just do not destroy an entire family
Yeah.
over it. Guys, let's leave families alone, okay? Let's let them live their lives, okay? Don't be a mean demon worshiper. Be a nice one. Give a good name to demon worshipers for us, okay?
Exactly.
Beyond that, by the way, when we first started this, we were having a lot of tech problems, so I asked King Payment to bless it. So now I am asking King Payment again to bless this podcast and thanking him for letting us get through it. And yeah, if you think that's weird, then remember that when you grew up, people made you say grace before eating. Okay, get off my ass. Anyway, beyond that, everybody have a beautiful night. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
King Payman, how do you feel about Macabre Masters?
Honestly, you guys suck. What is this podcast even about? Pope, using bad language does not make you cool. Clean it up. I'm out, bitch.
Oh.